Hey, and we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing, and today we're talking about Black Ops 6. Yep, that's right. They're back with another one. They did it again. It's always online. It's this big, massive download. You know the gist and the problems at this point, but let's do what we usually do and dive in, breaking down the three big offerings here: campaign, zombies, and multiplayer. All in all, to get started, it is an entertaining and pretty fun package this year. Now, as a disclaimer though, of course, you probably know this, but here at gameranx, we're not like big, sweaty Call of Duty esports pros. We all kind of just play them casually. We usually end up being out of practice in multiplayer because we all tend to switch up games so often, but we do check out all the campaigns, myself included, for some mindless fun. So let's just get started off with that. This is spoiler free, and all this footage is captured on PS5. The campaign is straight up very good. It's much, much better than the tacked on mess that was Modern Warfare 3's, and a bit more interesting than Modern Warfare 2's. And really, it's just a good follow-up in story and just feeling to Black Ops Cold War. But this time, it's 1991, it's a new era, Desert Storm is kicking off, so you form this ragtag group of soldiers from across the world to solve the mystery of a dangerous international force. You join up with Robert Redford, Adler, and then Woods, the classic guy, and a few others in a haunted ex-spy mansion hideaway, and this is where you walk around and you talk to colleagues and spend in-game currency to unlock these little perks to go into missions with. It's nice to get these little perks. It doesn't do a huge amount towards like customization or anything like that, but it's little things here and there. Ultimately, you're kind of always changing your equipment and you're always changing your tactics because scenarios change so frequently in the campaign and you don't always get a ton of ammo. So you're always just trying different stuff, but still having this little tiny bit of customization and then loadout customization in game, like, and throughout this mansion, it works. But you go up to a board and you access these missions and they span the globe. And while at this far into it, it's not a lot we haven't seen before, it still manages to feel like it has some fresh energy. Great shootouts in big, massive office rooms were often the highlight for me. You know, like you got glass shattering, paper flying, pillars breaking down, all while you're sprinting and diving sideways with the new movement system and you're using explosive RC cars and throwing knives. It's got the fun factor. And the 90s make for a pretty good setting. You get snippets of good music, you see Bill Clinton, and of course you eventually end up in Iraq during Desert Storm. For a bit, the game will give you some open-ended missions where you're free to tackle it how you want. For example, you're in Iraqi desert in open conflict and it's up to you to destroy 3 targets however you want. So you can snipe and stealth your way in, plant a C4 and blow it up. It feels really slick. It almost feels like a Metal Gear Solid 5 mission. Of course, you can also just go in guns blazing, or you can actually take your time in this open area and explore a bit, find some intel to make it easier, or do a side mission that'll grant you more weapons or ordnance, like airstrikes. It's a smart way to encourage some exploration and find more shootouts that end up actually feeling rewarding. This is much better than the kind of fake Warzone slapped together open-ended missions in Modern Warfare 3's campaign. These here feel thought out, like really well done, and with some good enemy encounters. And while I said a lot of it feels like stuff we've seen before, the characters, the pacing of it, and the music and energy just make it a good ride. There are some really cool moments, some really cool settings. Obviously, the visuals are cranking here. The modern Call of Duty games, the graphics have been nuts, but the level of detail here is really cool, and the orchestral music, like, surprisingly hits pretty hard. It definitely held my attention. You know, some levels start one way and end up completely differently, or they bounce around in time or in sections to keep the pace blazing from like a storytelling and gameplay standpoint. It's pretty cool. Not to mention, there are a few parts where the game does get weird, like any Black Ops campaign honestly should. No spoilers, but the game had a few kind of experimental moments that genuinely woke my ass up. Some clever, creative stuff. Very much clearly influenced by other games, but done in a way that you just wouldn't expect to see in a game like this, usually. One small nitpick, it's not that big of a deal, but like the game is surprisingly easy. The enemy AI is not very smart, and after a while on normal difficulty, I found myself like, what am I doing? I recommend ramping the difficulty up because it felt like it was a cakewalk. Sometimes these games are actually pretty tough on normal, It's a good way to at least start, but here you're going to want to ramp up the difficulty. My only other issue is that some pre-rendered cutscenes look like crap. Like they're pixelated and jacked up. Like it looks like it's streaming and the stream glitched out. I don't know why this is a thing. I remember this kind of being an issue in previous games. It must be the engine or just how these games are constructed. I don't know. Still, all in all, the game's about like 8-ish hours, and it's an entertaining ride. It's a Michael Bay movie. They always are, you know, some cool characters, some cool explosions. That's what I come to for these campaigns. I don't know where it ranks in like the all-timers, but it's really entertaining and one of the better campaigns in quite some time. Now, the multiplayer stuff. If you thought Modern Warfare 3 was sweat central, get ready because Black Ops 6 definitely seems like it's going to go beyond that. With the new Omni movement system and the speedier gameplay combined with a really fast time to kill, everyone's sprinting around like they've consumed a whole kilo of sugar and like also pure cocaine at the same time. The speed of everything this year just seems nuts. Even compared to the ridiculousness of Modern Warfare 3's multiplayer, Black Ops 6 still manages to feel faster. It's getting to the point where it's almost starting to feel like it's too much. You know, maybe it's a little too fast and twitchy. I think that's a matter of taste, but still, like, if that's the sort of COD you're into, I think there's a lot to like here. It's overall a solid multiplayer package. We haven't experienced any major bugs or game-breaking issues. At its core, everything works well, looks good, and feels good to play. And as far as new features go, the Omni movement isn't just a significant movement change, it's a standout new feature in multiplayer. We found ourselves taking advantage of it way more here than in the campaign, obviously. And it is the big thing. Like I said, there aren't any like major new modes or big loadout change overhauls. It's mostly all the same stuff the series has been doing for years, but it does it well here. The fact that it's not completely broken at launch is also noteworthy. They're not reinventing the wheel here, just focusing on what works. The multiplayer and zombies offering feels significant and everything feels good to actually play. So the only real point of contention is the movement and the speed of gameplay and all the little potentially annoying bits that can hamper your experience with the whole package. So that new Omni movement system I mentioned means that you can sprint at full speed in every direction and slide and dive in those directions too. Kind of like Max Payne 3, but for what it is, it feels great to do. Diving sideways through a door and gunning down some dudes is incredibly satisfying when you actually rarely pull it off. The new supine maneuver is also fun to use. The game allows a full 360-degree view while you're lying prone, and in general, you move much quicker when you're on all fours, so getting into and out of prone state is pretty fast. And overall, sliding and diving are just straight up better than ever. So if you were sick of everyone running around at full sprint, sliding around corners, and just flopping all over the place, then there's a lot more of it this year. There's less bunny hopping, but that's only because it's unnecessary now. Slide and dive rules supreme here. Still, there is some control to it. Like once you start out and you figure it out, you're gonna be like a wannabe Neo. You're gonna be dodging around all over the place like an idiot. It just looks cool, but those things don't always automatically make you win fights. You gotta use it when you need it. On its own, the Omni movement is just a tool, but taken with all the other adjustments they've made to multiplayer this year, it seems like every major decision has kind of been ruled in favor of the twitchy, sweaty gameplay. The lower TTK that we mentioned means that single-shot rifles and sniper rifles are even more powerful than before, while shotguns have been rendered more useless in anything other than extreme close ranges. Auto-aim has kind of been nerfed too. In a bubble, that's an improvement, but when taken with all the other changes, it's made the general skill ceiling much higher than you might be accustomed to. Here's the thing, we don't think any of this is necessarily bad. Pretty much everything we're talking about here makes for a game with a lot of room for skill expression and flexing, and you can pull off some mind-blowing plays here. But man, I feel like at this point, a lot of casual players are gonna get left in the dust. At least it's fun though. Now, the maps were controversial in the beta, and they have gone and made a few improvements here and there to make them flow better and fix some of the capture positions to make them more fair, stuff like that, but they don't always play well with these new Omni movement system stuff. On their own, they're fairly well designed, at least for deathmatch and stuff like that. Certain maps are not so great for domination and hardpoint. Games tend to bottleneck around certain objectives every time. It's still the early days, it's still getting figured out, but yeah. There are at least a few new maps, not just reusing a bunch of remastered Modern Warfare 2 maps like last year, but they're generally pretty small and congested. congested, and when they're not cluttered, they're way too open. It just kind of feels like there's not like the best balance. Still, we do like the looks of a lot of these maps, like the places like Rewind or Red Card look great, and generally stick the classic 3-lane structure of a proper COD map here. But there are a lot of tiny maps for the player counts. You're running into people like every few seconds. A lot of times you're getting into gunfights 2 seconds after spawning. I know at this point that's just Call of Duty, but it just feels like especially crazy this year. So if you love Call of Duty at its most chaotic, then you'll probably be happy here. And we really can't complain about the general performance and how the game feels to play. The series does sometimes struggle a little bit with the visuals on console in the multiplayer department, and the recent games all have this problem where they can feel blurry as hell when there's a lot going on. For the multiplayer, we captured it on Xbox Series X, and these issues continue to plague the series here. Readability can tend to be an issue sometimes with I guess the color palette, but also sometimes the blurriness of it. It's not an ugly game by any stretch, but on some maps it can just be kind of hard to tell what you're looking at sometimes. Everything is extremely busy, and it feels like enemy players can sometimes get lost in the scenery. It doesn't ruin the game or anything, but it feels like something that they could maybe improve upon. The only real slowdown we experienced was playing the zombies mode, and that was when there was a full team getting absolutely swarmed by undead. Most of the time the game ran very smooth like you'd expect. It sounds like we've had a lot of negative about the multiplayer in Black Ops 6, but it is really solid. It's well made, and for the people that like this sort of super fast gameplay it'll appeal to, I think they'll get a lot out of it. For us, it's a little too twitchy. We were reaching the limit with Modern Warfare 3, and Black Ops 6 went even further. Again though, the game is well made. It looks great, most of the operators are pretty cool looking, the music track that plays over the multiplayer menu goes surprisingly hard, and the presentation is pretty solid across the board. One thing that we do appreciate about it, what they've done here, is that there isn't a lot of unnecessary junk. There aren't any gimmicky game modes just to pad the game out. It's just your basic Call of Duty multiplayer like the old games, filled with the most popular and proven modes and with a decent selection of maps. Your opinion on the quality of them notwithstanding. The offering here all feels very old school Call of Duty, but in a good way. It's not like there's nothing new in the multiplayer. There are a few new modes like HVT, where one player is designated the high value target on each team, and if they're killed, then the opposing team earns points, while protecting them earns your team's points. It's sort of like capture the flag if one of your teammates was the flag. It's not complex, but it's fun. And in terms of weapons, there are 33 total guns at launch, with 12 being entirely new. Now, of course, unless you're a real gun enthusiast, you're not going to know all the differences here, especially now that they're using some made-up names for a lot of the guns. They feel good to use, and they look great. Some of the attachments don't make a lot of sense in how they're placed, but overall, the shooting is satisfying. It doesn't feel nearly as powerful as the Modern Warfare reboot, the flash isn't as strong, and the actual firing sounds aren't as intense, but that's probably for the best with just how sped up everything is. We're not going to make any statements about which weapons are overpowered and which ones are underpowered because it's been a day or so. We can't really make any definitive statements on anything at this point. The only thing we will say at this point, like we mentioned earlier, is that the shotguns do feel like they suck right now. Shotguns are good for zombies still, at least, and yes, along with multiplayer, they also brought back round-based zombies. And none of that half-baked stuff from Modern Warfare 3. We're back to classic zombies map action in Black Ops 6, and in contrast to the multiplayer, which we're still working our feelings out on, zombies this year is just straight up a lot of fun. It's basically the mode as we saw it from Cold War, so there are some new bells and whistles. The objectives are marked on your map, zombies have health bars, and the maps are generally more open to make zombie slaying easier in general. It's a more forgiving zombies than what you're used to. We're just not crazy about the UI stuff, but at least you can easily turn most of that off in the menu. Everything else is just classic zombies fun. They were even kind enough to include 2 maps to start again. Finally, both these levels are a lot of fun. Liberty Falls is an awesome looking level set in a sunny small town. It's got these huge open spaces that are ideal for just mowing down zombies, and unlocking the Pack-a-Punch is simple. The second map, Terminus, feels more like an intentional throwback. It's set on an abandoned island installation where you have to turn on these generators to reach the Pack-a-Punch. There are more congested interior locations that put your team at risk, and the map is just massive. It's so big, you can actually jump onto a boat and check out some distant islands. The the sort of thing that would just kind of be background scenery in the old zombie games. All the Easter egg stuff wasn't in the game yet when we played yesterday, so we can't comment on any of that, but the basic zombie slaying action is fun and as satisfying as it's always been. It's hard to praise the game too much for its back to basic zombies mode because Cold War got this first, but still, compared to how lame and unnecessary the zombie stuff felt in Modern Warfare 3, this is more of a breath of fresh air. And ultimately, that's really it on Black Ops 6 multiplayer. Like, it's fresh, or at least it's fresh enough. So far, it seems like we've been more into the zombies offering than the actual multiplayer this year. You know, that's always been our game, and it's just as mindlessly entertaining as it used to be. So with multiplayer, you're either gonna love or you're gonna hate, but at least they didn't totally screw it up. Some solid zombies and a really good campaign. Black Ops 6 is pretty good. Some people are buying into it, some people are just playing it on Game Pass. I'm curious to see how it goes down. And again, it is the early days, so we can't comment on too much imbalancing stuff. That's really gonna come down to the community. But again, so far, seems like a solid package overall. Still, that's a before you buy. You know how it goes by now. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now we want to hear yours down in the comments. Are you into Black Ops? Are you into the story? Are you into the multiplayer? Let us know what you think. If you jumped in day one, whether it was on Game Pass or on PC or wherever you're playing, we'd love to hear your initial first impressions like we shared ours. If you enjoyed this video, maybe seeing the gameplay helped inform your purchase or anything like that, clicking a like button helps us out. That's all you got to do. But as usual, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.